Why is it that we feel disgruntled a lot of the time, whether at work or at home? It's something called the Maslow paradox. How many people, by round of applause, are familiar with the Maslow pyramid? Okay. All right, good. So a lot of us are, some of us may not be, but this man, Maslow, talked about how there are several needs that we all have. The very basic being the physiological. You have to eat, all your 5 basic things of water, food, air, clothing, shelter, all of that. And then it ladders all the way up to self-actualization. Now, at our level, now we're not all on the same level, but at our socioeconomic status or so, we have kind of a high starting point, right? I mean, and that's a gift and a curse. And they say to whom much is given, much is expected. So the higher we are on the Maslow hierarchy of needs, maybe it is harder to find happiness, because to me, happiness is about the delta, right? When I'm the child of immigrants, so sometimes when I will see it from this perspective, it's a little bit clear. I'll see a janitor and I won't see a guy mopping up a floor. Well, I will see a guy mopping up a floor, but I'll also see somebody who may have come here from India, from Ireland, from any of the other 7 countries that start with the letter I, and if you're bored, you can work on that. But anyone who comes here, he may be, or she may be, raising a family, the breadwinner, and might be killing the game right now, whereas I was born into privilege, and maybe I haven't done that much with my life. So it's a little bit hard sometimes for us to find this if you came in to a loving family or having self-esteem, that getting to the last part feels like I haven't really done anything with my life. It doesn't seem like I've really moved very far. There's been research that tells us that happiness has 3 components. It's 50% genes, it is 10% circumstances, and it is 40% actions. Now, if you are dealt a bad hand, a friend of mine is an ophthalmologist. I'm Indian, obviously. I have an ophthalmologist friend. And he told me, he's like, some people are just dealt a bad hand when it comes to health. They come in, they just have bad eyes. It's not their fault. That's just the way that it is. But if you're on the cusp, then 40 percentage points is a lot. If some tips and tricks in your circumstances can take you from 35% to 75%, that is a very big deal. Because sometimes you don't need to do something different. You can continue to do what you're doing and do it differently. There's a big difference. Do something different or do what you're doing differently. You might not need to quit P&G in Cincinnati and move to Los Angeles and be a stand-up comic. That might not be the only way to find happiness. You might not need an overhaul. You just need a couple of tweaks. Because it's our impulse a lot of the time when something isn't working to swing the pendulum completely the other way and say, screw this, it's not working, I'm taking another path. You don't necessarily have to do that. And I remember working at Procter & Gamble, Punjabis and Gujaratis, P&G, the Peej. And I remember that one of their internal mottos was, make a little, sell a little, learn a lot. And I loved that. I loved that idea. So sometimes it can be illustrated in a different way. Epicurus in the 4th century apparently said, I wasn't there, if thou wilt make a man happy, add not unto his riches, but take away from his desires. It was also sung in the 1940s by 2 men who sang a song called You Have to Accentuate the Positive, Eliminate the Negative. And the rest of that is you've got to spread joy up to the maximum, bring gloom down to the minimum. They're giving us a formula. They may not have realized it. And it was also illustrated by 4 guys in the 1990s called Boyz II Men, one of my favorite first groups. I am a 90s kid all the way, so I love this song. And I'm not going to try to sing this because it's way below my octaves, but they sang, the good times that made us laugh outweigh the bad. Now, why am I giving you all of these different quotes? Because it turns out there is a happiness formula beyond the makeup of it, and I'm giving you the addition. I'm now going to give you the division. There's a happiness quotient, okay? Now, this is mine, and this is what I came up with. I said happiness is your perception of reality, not only reality, but also your perception of reality over your assumptions. Now, I want to be very, very careful because I once had this as expectations. And somebody goes, don't put expectations, because then you're basically telling people to lower their expectations. And people always say, you want to be happy, lower your expectations. Yeah, but if you have a happiness set point and an expectation set point, that's hard to do sometimes. I'll give you some tips and tricks for it, but you essentially have to increase the numerator and decrease the denominator, right? That's pretty simple, very simple math. Even a comedian who hasn't done a differential equation in a long time can remember a very, very simple formula like this of increasing the numerator and decreasing the denominator. Don't kick the can. Don't kick it into next week. When you get an invitation to do something in the future, ask yourself, Would you accept this invitation if it were scheduled for tomorrow? Very few meetings will pass that immediacy filter and you'll go, oh, I don't want to meet with this guy. But you somehow think in 2 weeks you will free up your calendar. We all think this, that the grass is greener over there, that's where the water is calmer. It's like, no, it's because you're not making it messy through the water. It's calm because you're not swimming in it. Once you get 2 weeks from now, a fortnight from now, it will be just as messy. You probably will be having the exact same 2 weeks in 2 weeks as you are right now. So I think trying to think, can I do it or can I not tomorrow? That's like, oh, I don't want to meet with him tomorrow. So that tells you something. And a good way to say no, I've interviewed a lot of celebrities on my talk show. One of my favorite questions to ask them is, how do you say no? How do you say no to people? Because they get asked things all of the time. And one of them is not me, and the other one is not now. Okay, so not me is like if someone comes to you in your department and you don't have the time, you don't have the bandwidth, you're not rewarded for it, it's not on your work plan. Hey, but you know what, Debbie in accounting, she can help you. That's more her lane. I don't mean to take everything that comes your way and give it to Debbie in accounting. That's not what I'm saying. But there is one way to do that where you can divert it. And the other one that I think is actually more applicable is I can give you 10 minutes tomorrow, or I can give you an hour in 2 or 3 weeks. They will almost always take the 10 minutes tomorrow. And you will save yourself 50 minutes because usually they don't need an hour. They just need a few minutes. So again, you got to go through that first filter first, right, of do I even want to do this? But if you feel like you can't get out of it, if you have time, you got to do it. But if not, it's a good idea to go for the immediate 10. Finally on this piece, recall the law of averages. Things have a way of reverting to the mean. At the University of Cincinnati, materials engineering, I remember I got a B in my mechanics class and there was no plus-minus system at the time. I was so pissed off. I really wanted an A. I got an A in fluid mechanics and that made me so happy because I worked so hard in that class. I got an A, I was so happy. I got a B in mechanics. It was mechanics 2. I was so angry about it. And I marched into Dean Young's office and I told him, I'm like, I should have had an A in this class. He was a very calm man and he looked at me and he goes, okay, maybe you should have had an A in this class. But admit to me right now, there are probably times when you got an A and you should have gotten a B. And I realized how right he was. I also want to punch him in the face because that made so much sense. I'm like, you are so right about that, Dean Young. That's not fair, but you're right. But it's the same thing you will say to a cop. A police officer will stop you. You'll say, but officer, I was not speeding. And most police officers will look at you and go, well then fine. This ticket is for every other time that you were.